We'll get there in like 2 minutes, so it's just 1 minute. I just need to get the open forum stuff going.
Did I upload already, right?
Yeah.
Well, we can work I'll get that right here.
I have it right here. Like,
Okay, let's start this.
okay. We're good to go. Well,
You're good to go.
huh?
Let's start.
Okay, we're good? Everything all set?
You can start.
1, 2, 1. Okay. Hi, everyone. We're going to go and get started. I hope all of y'all are having a good week, and thank you all for being here again. We have a lot to discuss, so we'll try to move quickly. If anyone wants to speak in open forum, just go ahead and sign up on this link here. I do know we have quite a few people already, so if you want to speak, just go ahead and sign up. Okay. Our land acknowledgement.
We would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on indigenous land. Moreover, we would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the Carrizo and Comecrudo, Coaletican, Cabo, Tonkawa, Comanche, Lipanapache, Alabama, Tashada, Kicapu, Igua Pueblo, and all the American Indian and indigenous peoples and communities who have been or have become part of these lands and territories in Texas, here on Turtle Island.
Okay. Yeah, so if you want to sign up for open forum, can you go back? Yeah, if you want to sign up for open forum, this is the link. I'll wait like a few seconds because I think someone else wanted to sign up for it. Okay. Next slide. Next one. Okay, our first attendance code, please go ahead and fill this out if you are here. Adrian? Okay.
You come perform, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I was like, we have a lot of people on Zoom on here. I think we're good. Okay, we're good, Leland. Can you let Gerald know how many people we have, just so we have the vote totals right? Okay. All right. So we have a special guest today. We have State Representative Gina Hidos here to speak with us. Yeah. This is our state representative that represents us in the Texas legislature in the House. And she'll be here to speak with us about issues pertinent to us. And so we're going to deviate from our usual way how speakers go, which is usually it's like 15 minutes to talk and then 5 minutes of question and answer. Representative Hinos is just going to speak, and then if you guys want to ask a question, just go right ahead. So that's how we'll go, and we'll just set up a 20-minute timer. And of course, if y'all want to extend, that is something that you have your purview. Oh yes, I'm sorry. Whenever you're ready.
Where do I do? Oh, right here.
Mhm.
Can you flip the thing over here?
All right.
20-minute timer.
Okay. Do I really need it? Yeah, I probably need a big room. Okay, well, it is a pleasure to be here. I see so many familiar faces, and I want to just say how much I appreciate how engaged so many of you are in our larger community, how important that is. I represent the UT area downtown, this really Lamar corridor, so central Austin. And this is my third term in the House. I am a UT.
Can you vote?
Yeah.
And
I'll throw in. Do you want to read text erotic fiction?
also a UT grad, how great it feels to be on campus. Just relax when I'm on campus. But I don't have an agenda. I have to say the world is so crazy politically right now, and from one week to the next, we're bouncing around on all sorts of crazy things. So, I don't know, I want to talk about what y'all want me to talk about or answer questions that you all have. I'll tell you, right now, for the last month, really, I'm vice chair of the Human Services Committee. We've been focused on foster care. There was this terrible thing that happened down the road in Bastrop at this place called the Refuge, where girls who'd been sex trafficked were and being taken, having pictures taken of them by people who were in charge of helping them recover, and nude pictures that were sold online for drugs. It's a terrible situation. Meanwhile, our governor is sending CPS workers to show up at the door of families of transgender kids and threatening to take those kids away. And so it's all been a big mess. But I'm interested in education. I'm interested in voting rights. We had this thing called a corn break over the summer, and we got engaged in a big way in the national voting rights debate, and had some unfortunate legislation passed this last one of the special sessions after we came back, and we saw really the results of bad policy that was passed in this last primary race. One of the things we're going to be working on is educating people about how you make sure your voice is heard and how we shouldn't be afraid to still be voter registrars. Do you know that the law hasn't changed with respect to voter registrars? Still go out, become a voter registrar, register people to vote. It hasn't changed. Don't be afraid of criminal penalties. Just do what you always did. You used to do this before. So we need to make sure that people still feel empowered to participate in a meaningful way in our democracy. But I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to open it up to whatever you all want to talk about.
Yeah, Representative or Speaker Richard, sorry, Coleman.
Rep. Holman, UI, thank you so much for coming here today, Representative Hinojosa. I know we all really appreciate it. And I guess my question for you is, how did you get involved in politics and just advocacy in general?
Yeah, I'm originally from Rio Grande Valley. I grew up in Brownsville, Texas, and I came to UT, then went to law school, and then moved back to Austin. I was in DC in law school. And I made my husband promise before we got married that he could never run for office. Because my dad is a politician, and I hated being the daughter of a politician. And so I didn't want that for my family. But what happened was that my son's school was threatened for closure when he was in kindergarten. And I was just a bad mom. And I got mad and ran for the school board. And I won. And I served a term, 4 years. And then I got mad. Usually anger drives people to run for office. Then I got mad because the school finances were so screwed up, and those decisions are made at the Capitol. My predecessor in this office, Elliot Nishtat, had been in the seat for 16 or 26. Now I'm confused. I have to let story a little bit. Over a long time. And decided to retire. So that seat opened up, and I decided to run for it to work on school finance issues. So that's how I ended up. But I really, before that, I started getting engaged in local politics through this group that was then called Austin Interfaith, now is called Central Texas Interfaith, and or Greater Central Texas Interfaith. And it brings together people from different denominations of churches and unions and neighborhood associations. It brings together institutions really to work on what are common shared goals. It's where I learned about organizing. And so the first thing that we worked on was making sure that our teachers had affordable health insurance. And that's how I started getting involved a little bit in school politics. That my son was in school, and his school was right closer than I decided to run. But that's what I tell people who are interested in getting involved in politics, especially here in Austin. There's always some group that's working on what you care about. Just start showing up. You guys are the type, you already are showing up here. You're the type to do that, but it's the people who show up who just automatically will start getting people to ask you to do more. And then those people will vouch for you. They'll say, yeah, I know her. I worked with her on this, and when you run for office, that's your kind of constituency, whether it's like Sierra Club or whatever it is you worked on, will say, yeah, I vouch for that person.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else have a question? Representative Cannon.
Representative Cannon, UI, what's been like your most favorite project you worked on in the legislature?
Well, the core break was really not really planned, and something that it inspired me. I gained a new respect for my colleagues who gave up so much to give up being with their families, showing up at their jobs, and just left everything behind because of what they believed in. And so that was probably the most, and because it was so unscripted, it wasn't the way we had always done things. It was exhilarating, and it gave us a taste for what's possible when we are somewhat unscripted. So that was the thing, that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most. But there are, one of the bills that I passed that was one of the most fun things I worked on is creating a new type of corporation in Texas. So this was my first year in the legislature. I passed the bill to create benefit corporations and a benefit corporation. So a corporation they have a duty to their shareholders to maximize profits, right? And in fact, if they don't do that, then they can be sued by their shareholders. But a benefit corporation has that priority, but it has dual priorities. It has another priority of doing something good. It has to be declared by the shareholders up front, whether it's prioritizing workers' rights, whether it's prioritizing nature. Patagonia is a benefit corporation that prioritizes, I think, natural spaces, right? And so we didn't have this in the state of Texas. Other states had it, and now we have that in the state of Texas. And I think of it as corporate reform, and I think it is the direction that our corporate world is headed, because consumers really care about this. They really want to know that where they're putting their money, where they're investing their money has some benefit to society, especially younger consumers. And so I think that is just where naturally right now our corporate world is headed. I'm glad we now have that tool here in Texas to incorporate in the state of Texas benefit corporations. Kind of sounds boring, but
Representative Tristan.
Representative Tristan, UI. What are your goals and aspirations for the future? And would you ever consider running for governor?
I never said those. Said this is gonna be your next governor. Oh my God, y'all see what's happening at the border right now? So bad. The border is shut down. Y'all know what's happened? Just so Governor Abbott ordered an inspection of every truck that comes into the United States, on top of what happens already by Border Patrol. He has DPS doing this, and it's taking 45 minutes to an hour to inspect every vehicle with an extra inspection. So truckers people are waiting at the bridge for days. I'm from the border, so we used to cross freely all the time, and people now are waiting for days. And so 500 Mexican truckers got angry because they've been waiting there. So now they're blocking all traffic into Mexico as a protest. Anyway, it's a mess. But back to your question. And honestly, the way that I have gotten to this point is just to take opportunities that are interesting to me when they arise. I didn't plan to get here. And I kind of think that that's just you just never really know what life's gonna throw at you. And I tell my kids, if something seems scary, then that's kind of a sign that you should probably do it because it means something to you, right? And so that's something that I try not to let stand in my way, fear of doing something. But other than, I mean, look, I represent Central Austin in the Texas housing. This is a pretty good gig, right? I love it. I love my job. There is no other, I don't think there's any other district like the district I represent where people are so engaged in the work. It's more like a partnership with this community, the work that we do at the Capitol. What happens at the Capitol is kind of like our local news, right? It's very, very different from the representation that people who represent other parts of the state engage in. I'm not sure that I would like representing anywhere else that it's this part of having this be kind of a communal effort that I love. Not to say I wouldn't say no to something else, but right now I'm happy doing what I do. I would be more happy if Democrats could. I wasn't in the minority.
President Murphy.
Thank you so much again for being here tonight, Representative Hinojosa. You know, the 87th session, as you kind of mentioned, was a lot of not great stuff was passed. But what are some of your hopes for the 88th legislative session, and how, as we as like a student body and a student government, how can we work with you to kind of push some of those priorities?
Well, at the end of last year, I went to this legislative conference with members of the legislature from North Carolina. And it was all the Southern legislators, and it was the members from North Carolina who were talking about having a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature and what it does to bring everybody to the table, right? Because nothing's gonna pass, the governor says he's gonna veto it. And so it forces everybody, it forces compromise. And I think that would be, that's my goal, is to get Beto elected so we can have some balance for next session. So we don't have CPS showing up at the doors of loving families just because they have a transgender child. That stops the new governor. There's no law on the books that says that should be happening. That should not be happening, in fact. We need that kind of moderating force because we're off the rails here in Texas right now. I mean, Republicans have been in charge for 30+ years, and it's, you know, that saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's where we are. They don't feel like anybody's holding them accountable. And so they're not doing the business of the people. That's why we have a grid that teeters. That's why we have a grid that failed for a week. And many of us, myself included, spent days with no electricity in freezing homes. About 700 people, Texans died, right? So, so that's one of my goals. But the more I think about preparing for next session, because last session was so terrible, so we have to do things differently. And I think our work is more outward facing than inward facing. And what I mean by that is nothing's ever going to change unless the rest of the state sees what's happening and gets angry about it. And so I think we need to do a better job at bringing people into our work, bringing Texans from all over the state into our work and providing better transparency into what happens at the Texas legislature. We don't make it easy for people to understand what's happening there. And we need to do a better job of figuring out how to provide that insight.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Representative, wait, I'm sorry, Mosley, I'm so sorry.
Rep. Mosley, thank you so much for coming to visit us. I really appreciate it. One question I had is, about 2 months ago, the Lieutenant Governor said that he wanted to end tenure in the state of Texas. And I was wondering if you could give us any insights into, one, how your Democratic colleagues are viewing that call, and also if there's any division.
Hey, do you want to exchange numbers for emailing?
But like where or like are you?
Well, I think it probably will mostly be a party line vote. I'm trying to remember why. What was it? Oh, it was
Oh.
group of investors who
Okay,
made
all
a
right.
statement about
I'm like.
diverse.
Okay, and then if you could just text me your full name so I can put it. And then whatever task we get
So I
assigned,
think that
we'll just.
as a result, it's probably mostly gonna be a party, that makes it from floor, I think it's probably mostly gonna be a party line vote. Here's what happens though. There are a lot of things that Republicans don't want to ever come to the floor. And I'll tell you, specifically the abortion ban was one of them, criminalist carry was another one. But Speaker Dade has let all those things come to the floor, and they don't feel like they have a choice but to vote for it. So in my private conversations with a lot of Republican legislators, they'll say, I know that legislation is crazy, but if I don't vote for it, I'm gonna get primary. I'm gonna get challenged in a primary by someone to the right of them, and they're gonna lose. And I don't think that's an excuse to not vote your conscience, but that's just the reality of what we deal with. And so my guess is that there will be an effort to try to keep it off the floor of the House, but those efforts last session did not work. They worked in prior sessions. They did not.
You still have your question or?
Yeah.
Mr. Sexton.
So in a legislature with all its craziness and working with colleagues who believe that certain conspiracies are not legal, how do you wake up and just walk over the building in the morning and still lead with your values?
Well, what they believe doesn't affect my values or integrity. I thought you were going to ask how do you engage with them. Wait, what was that? You threw me a curveball. Yeah, so I mean, I don't have a problem. I vote no a lot. I don't have a problem voting no. And I think the biggest challenge is that last session we just got overwhelmed with so much terribleness that it was hard to be ready to fight the next battle. They were just one on top of another. And so the challenge is losing steam, right? We have a staff of 3. And we hear we'll have hundreds of bills on the floor of the House in a day. It's crazy. It really is totally irresponsible. We should not be making laws like that, but that's the way it is. That's the challenge, is putting in your full passion, conviction in every single fight, because you get beat down. So, I mean, it's easy enough to vote no. I'll say this, for some people, it's hard to, they want to stay in good standing with leadership. And so they maybe don't vote their conscience or their, right, vote their values. But me, and I don't think it's anything special to me. I represent a community that expects me to vote our values and that watches me and holds me accountable. So for me, it's not an option. I represent Austin, I represent the district, and I don't shy away from what I believe.
All right. Okay, are there any motions to extend time or are we? Are you okay with extending? Okay.
Representative Please, wide motion to extend question and answer period by 3 minutes by unanimous consent. No, 10 minutes by unanimous consent.
Is there any objection? Jordan. Yeah, Representative Stephanie.
Representative Lisa White, what advice do you have for women, people of color, and other members of marginalized communities who have oftentimes been underrepresented in politics and who may one day aspire to hold a public office position like you do?
So I don't know if I have advice. I'll tell you the way I've always seen it. I've always seen, I'm a Latina, and I've always just seen myself as a Texan. We are a diverse state, and it takes all kinds. So, own who you are, be proud of it, and I think just being genuine, people appreciate that. I really do think that there's nothing that sells better in politics than just being your true self and being genuine. People can sense it when you're trying to be somebody you're not. I know you've seen it where you're like, man, that politician is fake, right? But so just be yourself. And look, the political world is so ugly right now, and it seems like, and it seems very, and it feels very hostile. People in power just are demonstrating a hostility that's really terrible. But then you come to a place like this, right? Young people have no tolerance for that. And so it's my hope that these are the final throes of that kind of prejudice, right? People are angry because this country has changed and people don't want it to change, but it's inevitable. It's here. So I think that it'll be easier. I think we just have to get through this very difficult part, and hopefully it won't be as hard.
Representative Feinstein.
What advice do you have for people who, like, we're in Texas, right? So it's like a Republican majority state. So you're arguing a lot of opinions that are not as popular, and therefore you have an uphill battle. So what would you say to other people who feel that their opinions are overlooked? And what's the most effective way to convey these opinions?
So I would argue, actually, if you look at polling, Democratic positions are more popular with the populace of Texas than Republican positions. People aren't voting on policy positions, right? Most people in the state of Texas support abortion rights. Most people think you should have a permit or carrying a gun, things like that. But our politicians aren't representing the policy positions. The majority. What do I say? So what do I say when you're representing a position that is a minority position, when you want to speak about something that may not be popular? I think that you want to hear the other side. When people feel heard, then they're more likely to hear you, right? You got to be open to what the other side is saying. I also think that when people get to know you personally, they're less resistant to your positions. And it's important to create those relationships. I get along with pretty much I probably get along with Republican colleagues as well as I do Democratic colleagues in the Texas House, just in terms of banter, on the floor of the House. And they know me. And so they probably originally thought, there's that crazy liberal Latina from Austin when I first came to the House. And now they know me and know that I'm a reasonable person. And so they hear me out. So I think once people get to know you, they're less likely to characterize your opinions as an extreme or out of step with what the rest of us think.
Representative Bailey.
Representative Bailey, hi, thank you so much for speaking with us, and I was wondering what keeps you hopeful for the future of the Texas legislature after last legislative session and all the party politics?
Well, I don't know that I have much hope about the legislature, honestly. I have hope, I really, we talk about this in my office. I talk about this with other elected leaders. My hope is young people. My hope is that things are changing and it's just gonna come and it's inevitable. And I work on climate change issues, for instance. This is a no-brainer for younger generations. But for whatever reason, we can't seem to make any progress on it in government. So my hope is young people. Also, I have kids. And I have to be hopeful, right? Because I need to envision a world where they're gonna be happy. It's just as a mom, the way it works. People are having kids less, and I'm like, no, but that's where the hope is. You have kids, because then you're invested. But yeah, it's just young people give me hope.
Representative Hernandez.
Rep. Hernandez, engineer. So some people, like some projections say that Austin will have as many as 3 million people by the end of this decade. So what direction do you envision Austin growing in over the course of this decade? And how do you think the political landscape will change because of the population growth?
Austin is changing so fast, and it's hard to know where we end up. Lauren, my chief staff, she was born and raised in Austin. She always talked about how fast it's changing. I've been here since '92, and it's just a different city. I think it's becoming a more diverse and cosmopolitan city. One of the things that I used to think Austin lacked, and I still think we could use more of, is an international feel of a big city. When I lived in DC, right? And that really does have this international feel where people are from all over the world coming to DC. I'm seeing more of that happen faster. I think that's a good thing for our city. Aside from that, of course, it's gotten a lot more expensive. Now one of the most expensive places to live in this country. I don't know that anybody has figured out how you keep a big urban metropolitan area from getting unaffordable. I don't know what the solution is, but yeah, I don't know what the solution is. I'm anticipating that what ends up happening is more people are moving to the outskirts of to like Round Rock and Bastrop and around, so we become more like Dallas, like Metroplex area where we take up more space, but we're one community. So if I had to guess, that's probably where I see us going, unless our city leadership can figure out affordability issues. Let me say this. The state makes it really hard for local leaders to work on affordability issues. The state prohibits, for instance, city council from requiring affordable housing in new developments. The state prohibits raising the minimum wage in Austin or in any other locality. So there are things, the state gets in the way of or takes away lots of tools that our city could be using to be more affordable. So until that changes, there are limited tools to use.
All right. The chair is going to reclaim the remainder of the time. Okay, yeah, sorry. The chair is going to reclaim the remainder of the time. Thank you so much, Representative Hernandez. And we look forward to collaborating with your office in the future with the unionization of Starbucks and all in the future. So thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Can you go to the next slide? Yes. Is that the next one? Oh, okay, yeah. All right. So the first person for open forum that we have today is President of the Senate College of Counsel, Echo Nettinger. Oh, and two. 2 minutes.
All right, hi everybody.
One second.
Totally.
All right, you were good to go.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. My name is Echo Nattinger, and as of Thursday, I am the newly elected and confirmed president for the Senate of College Councils. And we just wanted to come by and briefly introduce ourselves because one of our biggest goals is to really collaborate with SG this year. So my name is Echo. I am a junior studying government in Plan 2, and I use she, her pronouns. And my big initiatives for this year are really building off of the CTBAC report, so working for increased student wages, and then also preparing for the Invest in Texas initiative, which is a big student lobbying effort at the Texas Capitol. So if you all are interested at all in working with Senate, please reach out. I know Kevin has all of my contact information and all of Cindy has it herself.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Cindy Harbitsky, my pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the incoming vice president of the Senate of College Council. I've come to view for something and you're definitely interesting, so yeah. But a few of my goals for this year, besides Invest in Texas and CTBAC, like what you said, is increasing accessibility and accommodations for students on campus. As someone who is a disabled student, I definitely have had to navigate this fear of, post-COVID. And it's been difficult. I'm sure many of you sitting here may have had to navigate it the same way. So really trying to find a way to make sure that we are prioritizing disabled student voices when it comes to accessibility accommodations for academics and student life is a very big priority. So if you are also interested in being part of those efforts, you can definitely reach out to us. How much time do we have?
It's like 30 seconds.
Okay, our
10 seconds.
emails are vp.utsenate@gmail.com and president.utsenate@gmail.com. So, yeah,
All right. Are there any questions for the two speakers? President Murphy. Yeah, sorry.
Hey, thanks y'all for coming out. Really excited to work with y'all on a lot of stuff like Invest in Texas, advocating for increased wages. But the big question I think is, are y'all looking forward to Senate SG Field Day?
Yes. Yeah, there have been some suggestions from our college councils to incorporate trench warfare into the
Okay.
yeah, into the field day. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. But always happy to collaborate with SG both in and off the sports field.
Awesome. Any other questions? All right, the chair's going to play the regular time, and thank you so much for. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our next speaker. I will preface here that we are entering a more sensitive topic, so I want everyone to maintain respect. So as we move forward, as this is very important to certain groups. All right. So our next speaker is Madeline. I think this person is on Zoom, so they'll have 2 minutes whenever they're ready.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm here to speak in support of the upcoming legislation on the addition of caste as a protected category. I really want to emphasize that caste discrimination does exist on campus. I've read through the legislation myself and wanted to read one of the anecdotes or some of the anecdotes that I found really powerful.
You get called again because I was muted.
Is Madeline here?
Yes. Can y'all not hear me? Hello.
Okay, we'll come back next.
Oh, wait.
Okay, next.
Hold on, wait, she's talking on Zoom. We're having a problem.
Okay, 1 second.
We're so sorry. The audio is not coming through on our end, Zoom people, so let us try and fix that for a second.
It says that she's muted.
Can y'all hear me?
Looks like coming through here.
Talk again?
Hello.
Okay, here we go.
We're so sorry
All
about
right.
that.
Oh, that's okay. 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 Hi, everyone. I'm here to speak in support of the upcoming legislation on the addition of caste as a protected category. I really want to emphasize that caste discrimination does actually exist on campus, and I've read through the legislation myself and wanted to read out some of the anecdotes that I found really powerful. The first anecdote is at a cultural event on campus, some individuals vandalized a piece of equipment we were using, and I was expected to clean it up because I am Dalit and because my ancestors were cleaners. My academic research regarding caste was leaked, and I was flooded with casteist threats, hateful mail, and nearly doxxed because of it. I ended up having to censor a lot of my research and ultimately decided not to publish it anywhere because I couldn't deal with the fear of my background being outed. During a campus event with free food, I was told to go to the back of the line and that slaves eat last, in reference to my Dalit background. It was a complete slap in the face, and I was completely shell-shocked as to how people laughed. It was a joke to them, but it was completely demeaning to me. I felt completely abused and alone. I think these anecdotes demonstrate that range and severity that caste discrimination has taken at the University of Texas, and I urge you all to take this legislation very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for the speaker? All right, seeing none, the speaker's going or the chair's going to claim the remainder of the time. We'll move forward to the next speaker. Is Finney here?
What was the name? Penny. Penny? Penny, are you here? No, I don't see it. Right.
Okay, we'll move forward and we'll come back to it.
Next is Dr. Scott Stroh.
Okay, is Dr. Scott here?
Yes, I am.
All right, you are good to go whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to speak for a few minutes, and I am here to speak in support of the resolution adding caste as a protected category. I'm an associate professor of communication here at UT in the Moody College of Communication, and I've been very involved in research in India and South Asia, and I've, only in the last 5 or 6 years come to see what a bane caste is as an ideology that we ought to be concerned with. In many ways, we're in an age of inclusion, right? I mean, we try our best to right past harms, even though we disagree sometimes over the means for this and the extents and such, but we all want to undo these things that have happened. And we try to include groups and voices as much as possible. I try to do this in my classes. We try to do this in our curriculum, and universities with their policies try to do this across the board. And we all get the deal on sexism and racism. It's easy to miss certain kinds of harassment and discrimination when it comes to race and sex and gender. And so our policies give us reminders of these. They shape what kind of community we want to form. And so I support adding caste and ancestry-based discrimination to our non-discrimination policy. There's a rising tide around the nation, if you notice it. I mean, it's getting more noticeable. It's hard to miss, and it will be increasingly hard to miss. There was a Cisco caste employment discrimination case. I was one of the signatories on the amicus brief filed about 4 months ago on that. Universities across the nation have been adding to their discrimination policies, caste, Harvard, Brandeis University, the CSU, California State University system. So it's obvious that the concern is rising among caste and ancestry-based discrimination. And it's here at UT. You've just heard some of the examples. You can read more in the proposed legislation document. I'm not going to go over these. But I mean, it's something we should worry about, just like racism, sexism, and gender discrimination. So I urge those of you who have listened attentively, thank you for your time. And I urge you to take a stand in voting for this resolution to end the systemic ways, another systemic way that we have of unfortunately dividing, ranking, and devaluing certain groups and individuals based upon ancestry. Thanks again for your attention.
All right. Remainder of the time. Our next speaker is Shirag. I don't know if this person is here.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me through Zoom?
You are good to go whenever you're ready.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm a graduate student in the College of Education, and I'm speaking also on behalf for the upcoming legislation on the addition of caste as a protected category. And I've been involved as part of the broad coalition of students across undergrads and grad students as well in this effort. And I wanted to emphasize that in preparation for this legislation, stakeholder organizations at UT were asked to sign on as signatories on a petition in support of the addition of caste as a protected category. And the key stakeholder student organizations that this legislation would impact are primarily those in having high South Asian demographics. So the biggest student organizations on campus with South Asian representation are the Hindu Students Association, which hosts the biggest events on campus like Holi and Diwali, the Indian Students Association, and the Indian Cultural Association. So all three of those organizations signed on to this petition, as well as two other non-Hindu associations, the Ismaili Muslim Students Association and the Sikh Students Association as well. So the representation of student organizations that signed on to our petition represent that this legislation would truly be pan-religious, pan-ethnic, and inter-caste, because casteism is not only limited to those of Hindu or Hindu religious or cultural background, but for South Asian students from across different religious backgrounds. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
For the speaker. Seeing none, the chair will claim the remainder of the time. Next. If Anna is on too.
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm also here to speak in support of the legislation that's proposed to add caste discrimination to the discrimination protection policy at UT. And I just want to talk a little bit about the point of campus non-discrimination policies, which is to protect students facing systemic marginalization and encourage equity in the campus environment for the ultimate goal of student safety and learning. Caste discrimination is undoubtedly present on campus, as you've heard, and caste itself is undoubtedly a systemic issue. Regardless of the number of caste-oppressed students on campus, they deserve to be able to fully partake in campus activities and academics without fear of being stigmatized for their inherent identities or immutable traits. It is heartbreaking for me to watch friends who have to hide their identities. The stigma around caste and lack of a safety net has an undeniable effect on their well-being. It is a duty of our administration to protect system-impacted students, and I urge the student government to support the legislation calling for the inclusion of caste as a protected category. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Dur. All right, the next person to speak is Dur.
Hello. Sorry, can you hear me?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I'm also here to speak in support of the legislation to add caste as a protected category. But I wanted to speak from the perspective of someone that benefits from caste privilege. So I've heard like casual belittling of the lived experiences of oppressed caste individuals on campus, but never really knew what to do. I've also witnessed instances of someone sharing their experiences with caste discrimination, and it's been like brushed off and ridiculed for. When students open up on this issue, they're constantly gaslit, questioned, and made to feel like their experiences and feelings are not valid. And I recognize that as someone of a dominant caste community who's not at the receiving end of caste discrimination, I have no right to define, to refute, to ridicule or invalidate experiences of casteism. Everyone should be allowed to share their experiences and be respected for it, which is why I believe so strongly in this legislation. If someone experiences discrimination based on sex, race, color, or anything else, they're able to report and be taken seriously. So those who experience caste discrimination should have that same right. And that's why I think this is something that needs to be addressed by UT policy. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, the chair will claim the remainder of the time, and we'll go back to someone that we missed. Is Finney here?
Does not look like Finney's here.
Well, that concludes open forum. We'll go ahead and move forward. All right, the quote of the week. Today's quote this week is "A people that values its privilege above its principles soon loses both" by Dwight D. Eisenhower. Perhaps you can take something with this week. All right. So we'll go ahead and move forward to new business. Next one. So first up is AR3 in support of the inclusion of caste as a protected category in UT Austin's non-discrimination policy. I don't know, it cut off a little bit, but that's what it says. There is a fast track requested. I have granted the fast track, but the authors and sponsors will go up for 1 minute, or well, they're online, so they'll speak online as to why they're requesting a fast track. This will require 2/3 total favorable, so 2/3 of the entire assembly total members to approve. Whenever the authors and sponsors are ready to explain.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, and just to clarify, you're explaining why you're fast tracking the bill.
Yes.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, just want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to speak and present our legislation tonight. We are here to seek the student government's support in the inclusion of caste as a protected category in UT's non-discrimination policy. So we're petitioning to fast track the bill. And I just want to be upfront and clarify that I am speaking under a pseudonym with my camera off tonight due to the need for anonymity and confidentiality. Caste is a highly sensitive topic, and many of the caste impacted students involved in organizing this legislation have expressed the absolute need for confidentiality through this process to avoid retaliation from not only peers, but also professors, administrators, and community members that may have influence over their system impacted families abroad. Retaliation can include verbal abuse, threats and coercion, and social exclusion, including from professional opportunities. And the severity of this potential retaliation is corroborated by the experiences that caste-oppressed students have shared with you today and in the Appendix A of this legislation. So the more time between this hearing and the vote, the greater the risk for caste-oppressed people. And we would be so grateful for any other measures that you can take in order to fast track this legislation and protect the marginalized folks that it is looking to protect. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the person or for the author requesting a fast track? Representative, Representative Greenwald. Can you talk into, can someone get a microphone, because people on Zoom need to go here. Can you press it?
Is it working now?
Yeah, cool.
Just a quick question. Can you elaborate on how caste discrimination specifically differs from other forms of discrimination?
I can't, it's something that we're also looking to cover in the presentation that we were going to do later on. But caste is a complicated nexus of inherited and recognizable factors, including ancestry, ethno-linguistic identity, adopted and ancestral religious practices, and other markers. And while some of these categories may already be protected under existing non-discrimination policies, the mixed category nature of caste and ensuing mixed motivation caste discrimination means that causation under any single category can be difficult to establish, which leaves instances of caste discrimination vulnerable to lack of redress. So it is something that is interfaith, interreligious, interracial, and doesn't quite fit under any one category that we have protected under our current non-discrimination policy.
All right, the speaker will claim the motion, the remainder of the time. All right, with that being said, the speaker will entertain any motions on the floor. Representative Whittington.
Motion to grant the abridgment by a hand vote.
All right, is there a second? Second. Are there any objections? All right. All those in favor of granting the abridgment, please raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed, raise your hand. Any abstentions? All right. By a vote of 25-0-0, abridgment passes.
You're still voting yes. Online too.
Yeah, I can. Okay. Next slide. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to we'll go ahead and move on to reading. And so we'll be voting on this tonight. It will not be referred to a committee. So the authors and sponsors will have 3 minutes to present this, followed by our usual practice of 5 minutes of Q&A. Are we ready?
Okay, I'm gonna just start sharing my screen if it's okay.
Perfect.
So I just want to thank you all, first of all, for voting to fast track the legislation. It's going to be immensely helpful to us, and it really means a lot. So I'll get straight into explaining the major parts of this legislation now. So first of all, what is caste? Caste is a structure of oppression that affects over 1 billion people across the world. It's based on birth and determines social status and assigns purity based on that. And according to the International Dalit Solidarity Network and the United Nations Subcommission for Human Rights, the caste system involves the division of people into social groups or castes, where assignment of rights are determined by birth, descent, and work. And these are understood to be fixed and hereditary categories. Caste is a global phenomenon, not exclusively practiced within any particular religion or belief system. Within the South Asian context, caste manifests through the Varna Jati system, impacting Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, Buddhist, and Jain communities. Caste oppressed groups such as Dalits and Adivasis continue to experience profound injustices, including socioeconomic inequalities, usurpation of their land and rights, and brutal violence at the hands of the upper and regionally dominant castes. Caste oppressed groups face segregation and untouchability practices as well. So Article 15 of the Indian Constitution explicitly prohibits discrimination on the basis of caste, and it's clear in recognition of the ongoing need to continue protecting against caste-based discrimination that a direct parallel can be drawn to the recognition of caste-based discrimination and gender-based racial and religious discrimination in the United States. So why caste protections at UT and how is caste different from existing protections? Like I mentioned in the open forum, caste identity consists of a combination of inherited and recognizable factors, including ancestry, ethno-linguistic identity, adopted and ancestral religious practices. And so some of these categories may already be protected under existing non-discrimination policies, but again, the mixed category nature of caste and ensuing mixed motivation caste discrimination means that causation can be difficult to establish. So we want to create an avenue of redress for caste oppressed individuals. For example, a Dalit Buddhist may be discriminated against more severely than a Dalit Hindu or an upper caste Buddhist due to the combination of their caste and religious identity. And so it's difficult for those that occupy these intersections to explain their position without caste being a protected category. So additionally, as caste discrimination often occurs in highly culturally coded and sensitive contexts, folks seeking to report such instances of discrimination often have to shoulder the burden of providing lengthy explanations and justification to administrators with little background awareness. Caste discrimination often also occurs between members of the same ethno-linguistic or religious group. For example, a Telugu-speaking upper caste Christian might be the one to recognize that another Telugu-speaking Christian is from an oppressed caste simply because of the dialect or their last name. And they can subsequently discriminate against them on the basis of this caste. And so you've heard instances of this sort of discrimination taking place at UT, and you can find more in Appendix A of the legislation. So the explicit recognition of caste can help in establishing necessary awareness and reduce some of the burden that survivors of caste-based incidents face in coming forward with reporting. So we're proposing something very simple. We would like for the University of Texas at Austin to add caste as a distinct protected category in their university-wide non-discrimination statement. So the policy would read, in accordance with federal and state law, the university prohibits unlawful discrimination, including harassment on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, pregnancy, age, disability, citizenship, veteran status, and genetic information. The university also prohibits discrimination on the basis of caste, sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. And we see this as a way of giving caste-oppressed students a pathway to adjudicate bias incidents, particularly when social exclusion on the basis of caste keeps them out of professional and academic opportunities, or when threats are issued against students on the basis of caste. So we're asking that student government supports us with our call for this small but impactful amendment, along with the distribution of resources on caste to administrators and the CMHC. We've cited multiple authorities that can be used and put together for the benefit of education for these sources. And I just want to emphasize, like Dr. Stroud did, that the addition of caste as a protected category is not unprecedented, and many other colleges have done so. Doing this would place us in the same ranks of those institutions. Thank you so much for your time and for giving us the floor today. I'm happy to answer any of the questions you have at this point.
All righty, thank you so much. The chair will claim the remainder of the time. We will now enter a 5-minute period of question and answer. Are there any questions for the authors? Seeing none, the chair will reclaim the remainder of the time. The chair will entertain any motions. Representative Poland.
Representative Pullman, UI, and moving the previous question by unanimous consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? So ordered. Entertaining motions. Representative Plaza.
Representative Gujaso, Liberal Arts, I motion to accept the resolution by a head vote.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? All right, all those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, AR3 is approved unanimously. All right. Next slide. All right, we'll now move on to AR4 in support of creating a temporary chief of staff role. This has been fast tracked. I will now move over here since I am presenting this. So Gerald will take over. I'm going to take my phone so I can actually create it. But yeah.
All right, hello everyone. So yeah, I'll be speaking for a few minutes, hopefully. But yeah, so the authors will, it's gonna be a long night, y'all. But the authors and sponsors have 1 minute to explain why they want to fast track. And whenever you're ready. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm putting
Okay. Take your time.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right, ready to go. All right. Yeah, so we're essentially moving for fast track this just because we are getting ready to introduce the Transform SG initiative bill next week as we get ready for first reading. So we'll have to review it and we can't get started that unless we get approved, unless like, if we get this approved, this will make our lives easier. If not, it will take us a lot longer. So that's just the essential reason, essentially that's the reason why we're asked to fast track this. And
the speaker reclaims the remainder of the time. We'll now enter a 3-minute question and answer period. Are there any questions? And keep in mind, you're only asking questions on the fast track, not the bill itself. Okay, seeing none, the speaker will reclaim the remainder of the time. Are there any motions? Representative Whittington.
Motion to grant the abridgment by unanimous consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? So ordered. Okay, so now the author will have 3 minutes. The authors and sponsors will have 3 minutes to explain the legislation.
all right. Yeah, so there are a few movements we'll talk about here shortly, but pretty much I'll just explain like what this bill does, and then of course, if y'all have any questions for Mr. Staff, he's right here, you can ask them. Oh, I'm sorry, resolution, yes. So yeah, I'll just go line by line pretty much. The first one here, the first be resolved clause here, that pretty much says that this person will be responsible for assisting the speaker, assisting the speaker in implementing legislation. This just in the operation of student government. This just essentially means that this person will be helping me go through the legislation, With reference to the transform SG bill that we're working on, that's just us going line by line, making sure that its intent is correct, making sure that what you guys wrote is what it's actually going to do, so that there's no confusion, future assemblies down the line. The next thing that the chief of staff will be responsible for providing drafting advice to the speaker of assembly for legislation being written. This is the same thing. Like, it just essentially means that this person will be working with me and we'll be going through the legislation with this. Next is to monitor all operations of legislative branches. This can be dealing with correspondence that they're making sure that the clerk has it sent out, making sure that the parliamentarian is doing the job they were prescribed under the LPC, the legislative policy committee that has now been referred to them. And then we have that the chief of staff will be responsible for advising the speaker on matters that they need. And so I know a few people have pointed out that this clause was a little vague. So we have agreed to strike this out, and we'll have an amendment that will clarify a little bit to put more emphasis on what this part means, so there's no confusion. But yeah, this is one preface that this is a temporary position, and that this is like something we're looking to see if it will be beneficial to us. If myself or y'all, the assembly, disagree that this is not needed, then this will not continue when we come back in the fall, when we begin the next session. And so that's pretty much everything that I have as far as introducing this. So yeah.
All right, the speaker will claim the remainder of the time. We'll now enter a 5-minute question and answer period. Are there any questions? Representative Kennedy.
Representative Cannon, UI. I'm curious, how did you choose your appointment? Was there an interview process, and why have you opted not to provide us with a resume per the code of rules and procedures? Sorry.
Yeah, that's a fair question. So there was no application process. Mr. Saxon has been a part of helping SG from the shadows last year, this year, and so he has helped us as we continue to what we're trying to do. I think that he is eminently qualified. This follows the same procedure as if we were picking a parliamentarian or a clerk. As far as resumes goes, that's something that just didn't cross my mind, but I'm sure he emails it right now. I can send it to you on the slide if that's what y'all need. But yeah, and I'll also just say this also while I have this. I'll answer any questions like related to the bill itself or the resolution, sorry. But if y'all have any questions for Alex specifically, I'll turn it over to him.
Are there any other questions? Representative Goyaso.
Representative Guajaso, Liberal Arts. So if this resolution passed, do you still intend on having representatives be advocates for their own bills to Latino students and anyone below Latino students?
Yes, you all can still do that. Yes, this is not taking that away.
Any other questions? Representative Kennedy.
So speakers reported the clerk and parliamentarian help them, and some of the duties you listed for the chief of staff. I'm curious why you opted not to appoint those first before enlisting outside help.
Yeah, so traditionally, we appoint our clerk and parliamentarian when we come back to fall. This has been done in the last 2 previous assemblies. We try to encourage freshmen to take on those roles so that they can run when we, when our term expires. Helen, Adrian are byproducts of that. That was a current practice by you back in the course too. So that's the current practice, and that's the tradition that I've been continuing to support. That's why I've been hesitant to appointing clerk right now.
Any other questions? Representative Weiss.
Representative Weiss, Communications. This is actually for Mr. Sexton himself. So, in my understanding, we're not a fan of student government representing graduate students. What has caused the change of heart in wanting to represent student government yourself?
There is no change of heart. For the remainder of this year, student government remains representing graduate students. And I don't think that a stopgap provision of the rest of this year should preclude me from helping out Kevin and the rest of student government in any way.
Any other questions?
I would say that I put the resume in the slide.
Representative Whittington.
Okay, yeah, one of those representative Cola. You need to encourage like some of the graduates to like, so role in that student. Like doing this to me would imply a further simply that it would just be like a guardianship with only the chief of staff. So would it make more sense for another guardian with certain positions that are English parents?
I don't think so. I think since, again, right now, you still equally represent graduate students along with undergraduate students. And this is a temporary role. And since at the end of the day, it can be abolished at the end of May, I don't think that me potentially being the first one is going to have any long lasting presidential impact if the role isn't going to exist much longer. Does that make sense?
Any other questions? And before you speak, Representative Weiss, just a reminder to please speak into the mic so the people on Zoom can hear.
Representative Weiss, Communications. Could you see yourself running for this position if the bill does pass and it is more permanent? Or do you just plan on serving this one term ideally?
If I was asked to return, yes. But if the role ends either because the role ends or because the way that I perform the role is just not what the organization needs, then I will have to.
Yeah, if this bill passes, we go through with making it temporary, and then we pursue making this permanent, and that passes as well. I would be looking primarily.
Representative Cannon.
Representative Cannon, U. White, I move to extend the question and answer period by 5 minutes by unanimous consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? So ordered. Oh, I had a question. Any questions? Rep. Cannon.
Okay, so you mentioned that you need the chief staff role for the Transform SG initiative. Before you set your sights on Alex Sexton, did you look within any of the 30 or plus 30 representatives that are passionate about reform or would like to work on it first that may want to help you, or even your own speaker pro temp before you move to the chief of staff role?
Yeah, so as far as speaker person, we have been in constant communication on this. I call him a lot, sometimes I call him at 1 o'clock a week, talk to 3 in the morning about stuff. So I don't overburden him, he's his own person as well. He has stuff, I have stuff to do as well. So I don't want to overburden anyone. And as far as that's the same thing for the 30 reps that are here. All of y'all are on budget reform committee, the rules reform committee, rules and regulations, ethics oversight. Changing some part of that sheet. I don't want to overburden anyone. And so that is why I did not choose to, consult with Holman here or any of the other reps. And I even have to he supports the idea. So.
Any other questions? Representative Sinatambi.
Representative Sinatambi, College of Natural Sciences. I was just wondering, since obviously all of us representatives were elected by the student body, for the clerk of parliamentarian, that is an application process. Kind of your reasoning behind just appointing Mr. Sexton. I know you do have lots of experience with GSA, but just based on the premise that this chief of staff position will have a lot of power and sway potentially in what we write, and yet there's no clear student body vote or influence on how he was chosen or how anyone in this role was chosen.
Yeah, I'll say 2 things to that. One, we're deciding right now. That's the whole purpose of this. If you guys approve of this, then we can move forward. If not, then ultimately we won't move forward. The second thing I would say that this is not giving anyone any new power, so to speak. There's no new power. This is only dispersing some of the things that I would do to another person to help speed up process and other things. So there's nothing being added to this role that already goes on.
Any questions? Representative Bailey. Also, just a reminder, please state your position for the minutes. Thank you.
Representative Bailey, College of Liberal Arts. Just to kind of expand on her question, I think more what is being asked is not necessarily are we adding new power, but why are we, the powers that are being redistributed, you were elected to the position you have to have those powers. Now we are redistributing powers to someone that was not elected into a position. I think is more what the question was. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Can you rephrase?
Yeah, sure. I don't know how to rephrase it. I don't have to rephrase the question. I'll just state it. We are reassigning powers that were previously belonged to elected or positions with an application process to someone that was appointed without an application process. Why do you feel that that is the right thing to do?
Yeah, so Mr. Sexton, and I've spoken with you earlier about this before we met here, is eminently qualified specifically right now as it relates to SG reform. And I'll also add here, like, again, that this is not like adding power or transforming, like, if this goes to this chief of staff role, this doesn't mean I can no longer do this anymore. It just is delegating a little bit more responsibility to someone else to ensure that there's an extra set of hands when we're doing things. So yeah.
Okay, just think of it like how Nancy Pelosi has like hundreds of interns and stuff like that, and they're not technically elected, but lots of helping hands.
All right, do we have any other questions? Representative Goyaso. Let's use our 40 seconds first.
Okay, so given that one of the big goals that the chief of staff is gonna have to do is the implementation of the Reform SG initiative, and I know that Kevin spent a lot of time tracking what the issues going to be and what it's going to look like. What experience do you have in terms of the SG, Reform SG initiative, and what steps have you taken to ensure its success so far?
So at this particular moment, I haven't seen the bill that is currently being prepared, but from the last session, I have been drafting the ethics code.
Sorry, the time has expired.
About 2 minutes.
Is there a second? Any objections?
Objection.
All right, your motion.
Representative Kennedy, I move to extend by 5 minutes by hand.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections?
The two, or is
No, just one. Any objections? So ordered.
The ethics reform, so I've had my hand in that. I've also delightedly taken my red pen to any bill or resolution that Kevin's brought to my desk. The very first one was his resolution about the ICE in Texas. And I've also been responsible for the overhaul of the GSA bylaws. And in terms of actual legislative experience, this is now my third year in an officer role in a student government. So I've been around a lot and I've seen enough legislation succeed and fail to know how to do it. And in terms of implementation, the main question I would be asking reps is why and how. For example, if you wanted, this is totally make-believe, but if you wanted to make the president position appointed by y'all, why did you want to do that? How are you going to do that? How are you going to talk to the Dean of Students Office about that? How are you going to put it on a bill for a constitutional amendment election? How are you going to market it when it's on the ballot? All of those kinds of operational questions are things that I would ask and run my advice to answer.
Any questions? Representative Cannon.
Representative Cannon knew why. Mr. Simpson indicated in the past that he's tremendously helped with legislation, and then Speaker Roberts, who also mentioned that you were amending out the Dean of Students in the Supreme Court for reviewing legislation. So then why can't Mr. Sexton continue to function in the capacity that he's already been functioning with you? And why can't he just be your personal advisor? So I guess the question is, what's the need for position now?
Yeah, so there's two parts to this. One is in the resolution, it says that Mr. Sexton will, his ex officio status will be extended by an additional, I think, 45 days. Okay, not January, I'm sorry. And then also, as well as the fact that because that this is a role that's not really within the code of rules right now, and that we're trial running this, it needs to have some sort of legitimacy. And so that legitimacy stems with the resolution.
Any questions? Representative Fearman. And just a reminder to please state your position.
Representative Fearman, business. Can you just clarify and elaborate what you mean by the line arbitration of the office of the dean of students?
Yeah, so one thing that happens is when we pass bills, specifically bills too, the dean of students can pretty much be like, I like this thing that you're changing. I don't like this thing that you're changing. And so the hope is that Alex can work with me, try to frame my arguments by whatever we pass to get to the dean of students office, make sure that whatever changes that we make are ultimately implemented for future assemblies to come. And so that's what it means, just helping with arbitration, drafting my arguments for that.
Representative Collazo.
Representative Collazo, Liberal Arts. Earlier, you briefly mentioned that there was an amendment to your bill that you were written. Can you speak about that bill? Because I think it doesn't address the issue which is brought up.
The amendment?
Yes.
1 second, I can pull
Yeah, you can pause it.
Yeah, so the amendment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Diego, this amendment just really strikes out the part that's talking about like, this person will advise me, but it's like very vague. And so what we decided to do was add in, be it resolved that the chief of staff will assist the speaker of assembly in organizing of ideas and proper legislative procedure, as well as be it resolved that the chief of staff shall not be granted the ability to represent the assembly to the dean of students. And so that part just essentially just means that Mr. Sexton is not going to go on your behalf and talk to the dean of students. That will still remain primarily my job. I just wouldn't delegate that to anybody. So,
Representative Bailey. Sorry. Rep. Bailey.
Rep. Bailey, College of Liberal Arts. I start with a motion to extend the time by 3 minutes. Unanimous consent.
Is there a second? Any objections? So ordered. 3:30.
Awesome. Well, I have a question. Again, Representative Bailey, College of Liberal Arts. So since we are discussing the redistribution of power rather than creation of power, would you take responsibility for any and all actions that this chief of staff position would have?
of course, yeah. Well, one, I wouldn't say that we're not redistributing anything. It's more dispersing. Like, it's not like I give this person and I lose it. Like, that's not how this works. This person is just going to help and be an assisting role. And so I would also add that to the second part of your question. Can you take it?
Yeah. The second part of the question was just that would you take responsibility for the actions of the position?
Yes, anything that happens, I will take responsibility for. I mean, at the end of the day, this is something that I have pursued. If anything happens, like it is my fault, I will take full responsibility for that. But I understand, I realize that Mr. Sexton here is eminently qualified. I think I made a great decision here. So I don't think anything will happen, but if it does, the year now, I am taking responsibility.
Any questions? Representative Tristan.
If I remember correctly, former Speaker Cannon created an executive oversight committee, which were filled by appointees. So would you agree that there is precedent with the speaker choosing someone to fulfill certain duties?
Yes, the speaker picks the people to serve on the executive oversight committee. They also, at the end of the day, pick the person for the parliamentarian and pick the person for the clerk as well. So yes, as far as creating ad hoc committees, that person, the speaker picks the chair. So yes, there are positions of where this happens. And I'll also say, like, this is still following the appointment process. If you have any questions for Mr. Sexton, get right here. Like, you can ask him any question. Like, put the resume down below. If by not following, like by not, I guess, putting him on the actual appointment file or appointment part of the agenda, it just saves a week, because at the end of the day, if this passed, then I would appoint him, and then we would be in the same position. So,
any questions? Representative Cannon.
Representative Cannon, UI. It's up to the assembly to assess the validity, fairness, and efficiency of the appointment process. So did you partake in any interviews of candidates other than Mr. Sexton? And if not, did you just choose him because of your prior relationships with him?
I wouldn't say prior relationship, but no, I would say that Mr. Sexton is eminently qualified and has helped draft legislation, not just me, but other former representatives as well. And as played a part of the current transformation bill as well right now, there are some provisions that he has provided with me to review and look through relating to further transition guidelines between the two administrations. So no, I think that this person is who we need for what we're doing right now.
Any other questions? Representative Kennedy.
Real quick, would you agree that the executive appointment oversight committee, ad hoc committees, and chair positions of ad hoc committees are all codified as a job description under the Speaker of the Assembly?
It is, but I would also say that this is also allowed. If you look at congressional precedent, this is generally how they will.
I'm sorry, the time has expired.
5 minutes, figured.
Is there any seconds? Any objections? It's ordered. Oh, any questions? Representative Balakrishnan. Sorry.
I haven't really figured out how I'm gonna phrase this in a question, but Representative Balakrishnan, business. Do you feel that in these proceedings that people are just opposing for the sake of opposition, and that this isn't really the path we wanted SG to take from the beginning? Because I know a lot of people here from the beginning of assembly, like a few meetings ago, we've been wanting to create a supportive atmosphere, not a politically charged one. So just want to point that out. So ask you. That was a question.
I don't know how to answer that.
Question mark.
You don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
Yeah, I guess for the sake of the question, I'm gonna say that that is pointed for me because I don't want to answer that.
Okay. Any other questions? Representative Fierman.
Point of information that I don't think this is a political debate whatsoever, but instead this is what we need to talk about if we're adding a position and possibly appointing something.
Was that a question for me or just a statement? Okay. Any other questions? Representative Balakrishnan.
Well, yeah, point of information that there's always been, how can I say this, alignments in student government, and I think that's been really clear.
Sorry to cut you off. So generally, point of information or question for the speaker. So they're not really statements. So if you do want to say a statement, then I recommend you
We'll
raise
chat
a
later,
question.
Bruce.
All right. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Yes, Representative Tristan.
Representative Tristan UI. A lot of assembly members in this room, including the colored representatives, a lot of the university wide representatives and others, ran a campaign based on student government reform, accessibility, transparency, etc. Would you agree that in order for us to see substantive changes in student government, this role is vital?
Yes, Rep. Ruger, Mr. Saxon, like I said, is eminently qualified. He has served in the Texas legislature. He is well aware of legislative practices, so he understands framing legislation, framing the questions, making sure that they're written in a way that will get the intended purpose. And then he will be helpful in providing a different perspective when I make my arguments to the dean of students, to the deputy dean of students and dean of students office generally. So yes, I think if we want to get tangible SG reform done, I think that he's the best person for the job given it right now.
Any questions? Representative Whittington.
Do we have points of privilege? Do we have them?
Yes.
To my understanding.
Okay, oh, wait, point of privilege now? Point of personal privilege allows us to address the chamber. And I feel like we need to know that, so this is a lot.
Hold on, give me a minute. I need to double check.
Oh my God.
Let me just double.
It's in Robert's rules.
Point of, I'm not there, but can I?
Go for it.
Okay. Point of personal privilege is like, dim the lights or like, you stop leaving your parents, so we can stop a time or it's not a time to just speak.
Right. So back to questions. Representative Tristan.
Oh, I have a motion.
Motion? Okay.
Motion to close Q&A by unanimous consent.
Is there a second?
Objection.
Okay, next motion.
Motion to close Q&A via hand vote.
Second.
Second.
Okay, if you're in favor of ending Q&A, please raise your hand. So, yeah. Oh, how many are in Zoom?
Well, I mean, no one on Zoom is
Okay.
raising their hands. So I guess we-
And raise your hands, lower your hands, and if you oppose the motion, please raise your hand. So if you want to keep on asking questions. So, 1, 2. And any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes and we're now exiting Q&A. Are there any motions?
I have a motion. I move to make an amendment. The first amendment is to strike any mention of the role of the word chief of staff and replace with deputy to the assembly.
Can you send that to me in writing? Or is it the one?
I will send that to you right now.
And then can you also email it to Leland so he can put it on the
Yeah.
screen? And you sent it to Leland too, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me pull it up real quick. Let me unmute. Okay, wait, yeah, this is it. That's the amendment, correct?
Right, so striking out any mention where it says chief of staff replaced with deputy to the assembly.
You'll have 3 minutes to explain the amendment and just give it 1 second.
Very quick, so yeah, this is just a quick amendment I'm making.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh,
3 minutes? Yeah, go for it.
okay, this is just a quick amendment I'm making, because chief of staff, like there is no other staff that we're appointing right now, because I won't appoint a certain predators to come back to the fall. So to more accurately explain the current role, it would be best to call it the deputy to the assembly. So, yeah.
Okay, the speaker will claim the remainder of the time. We'll now enter a 5-minute Q&A period. Are there any questions? Representative Kennedy.
Representative Kennedy, why, if this position is mainly advising you, why did you opt to call it deputy to the assembly instead of deputy to the speaker?
Well, one, this role is not just about me. This person is going to help you with your legislation. You are more than qualified to go to this person. Mr. Saxon, if you have any questions on legislation, this is not just for me. This is for all of you. So it's not for me.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the speaker will claim the remainder of the time. Are there any motions on the amendment?
I move the proposal.
Representative Roberts,
Okay, I move the previous question on the amendment.
by what vote type?
By unanimous consent.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
Objections? Hearing none, so ordered. Now we'll vote on the actual amendment. Any motions? Representative Whittington.
Representative Whittington, Cola, I motion to grant the amendment by the hand vote.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
If you're in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands.
Zoom too, don't forget. If you're in favor of the amendment, which the amendment is one thing.
Okay, you can lower your hands down. If you oppose the amendment, please raise your hand. Any abstentions?
No one's Zoom.
Yeah, it's fine. So the amendment passes. Are there any other amendments?
I have
Representative Foyaso.
Yeah, motion to introduce the other.
Which one?
I emailed it or forwarded it to you.
To me too. I sent it to you.
I didn't forward it to you. Let me forward it.
No, I sent it to him.
Okay.
I feel so like. All my stuff is on the last one.
Hey, which email you on? I can just send it again.
Oh my god, okay. Alright, can you send it to my Leland Dale Murphy text that you do?
It's this one, right? Oh, no. One second.
Wait, not the page for you. I mean, it's not my email that you recorded.
It's Leland
Dale Murphy at uTexas.edu.
Dale Murphy. Say it again.
At uTexas.edu.
Okay, sent it. You see it? Here. There you go. Yeah, it'd also be helpful if you sent it to the Slack for people who just want to read it there. And which one are we voting on? Representative Foyaso. Okay. Mhm. Yeah, we'll have to change it afterwards. So what we can do is,
Since you amended the underlying resolution, that's an implicit amendment to this. Whenever there's an amendment to something that's already been changed, so the actual resolution now says deputy and this still says chief of staff, then they're automatically kind of harmonized to make sense. So there's no need to amend this amendment. It's already happened automatically.
sounds good. So Representative Collazo, just to clarify, are you wanting to do the amendment on the striking one or? Okay, let's just do them separately, just for transparency and cohesive purposes. Okay, so you'll now have 3 minutes to explain the amendment, and if you could come to the front. 15 minutes. Yeah, just.
So the point of this amendment is because one of the criticisms that I had of the bill originally, I was strongly opposed to it, is that it's very, very vague, the wording is really vague. And the chief issue I had is because of the way that it was worded, the deputy would be able to go on behalf of the dean of students and other organizations. So my first amendment is to strike that very vague clause. And then in a later amendment, I proposed it, like outlines what the deputy can do a lot more rigorously, so they don't have a lot of unilateral power.
The speaker will claim the remainder of the time. Will now enter a 5-minute Q&A period. Are there any questions? Representative Tristan.
Representative Tristan UI, Representative Collazo, you ran a campaign based on the idea of bringing substantive change to student government, and Speaker Roberts has clearly affirmed that this role is needed for us to do so. If your amendment passes, can you assure the Assembly that you will vote in the affirmative?
If no other issues are raised outside of the issue that I believe that I fixed with this amendment, then I will plan to support the bill. However, if another issue is raised, I can't guarantee a unilateral vote like that.
Any other questions? Representative Roberts.
Did you know I support this amendment?
Yes, I know that you support this amendment.
Any other questions? The speaker will claim the remainder of the time. Will now enter. Now I'll entertain a motion. Representative Roberts.
Roberts College of, well, university-wide.
He's speaking to the mic.
Oh, yeah.
Rep. Roberts, university-wide rep. I move previous question on this amendment by unanimous consent.
Any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? So ordered. That's okay. Are there any other motions to introduce any other amendments? Representative Collazo.
Representative Collazo, Arts motion to introduce the second AR.03, right?
Can you put through it? And just to clarify, that's the add be resolved one, right?
The two results. That needs to be consent.
We'll do this separately.
Point of clarification, for commentators, we didn't pass the amendment.
Yo, someone motion.
No, I motioned previous question.
Oh, you're right, my bad. Are there any motions to, on the First Amendment? Representative Whittington.
Representative Whittington, Cova, motion to pass the amendment by unanimous consent.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? So ordered. Now, are there any other amendments? Representative Collazo.
Motion to introduce AR.03, which is the first be it resolved for us.
All right, the speaker will have 3 minutes to explain the amendment.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier. So it makes it so they're like strictly an advisory role. Because the main thing that we needed help with was like advising and preparing the speaker meetings. This ensures that they aren't actually meeting with like the dean of students or the Supreme Court on behalf of the speaker, which is an issue that I had and I know that a lot of reps also have.
The speaker will claim the remainder of the time. Will now enter a 5-minute Q&A period. Are there any questions? That's okay. Can you put the 5 minutes? Representative Human.
Representative Furman business. Am I correct that he striked all of those Supreme Court talks and his deputy speaking on our behalf already and added an amendment, or is this that amendment?
My understanding is that this is that amendment, because like I mentioned before, the original phrasing seemed very vague to me. So I wanted to strike it a little bit.
Representative Roberts.
I have 2 quick questions. First, did you know that I support this movement? And second, did you know that this role has nothing to do with the Supreme Court.
Yes, I understand that. I just want to clarify that.
Any other questions? The speaker will claim the remainder of the time. Are there any motions? Representative Whittington. Any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? Now I'll entertain a motion to pass the amendment. Representative Whittington.
Motion to pass the amendment by unanimous consent.
Any seconds? Any objections? So ordered. Are there any other amendments? Representative Boyaso.
Motion to introduce AR 4.0.
3 minutes. You will have 3 minutes to explain the amendment.
So this amendment
Go
makes
back.
it very much clarifies they cannot speak to the DMC on their behalf. The largest issue that I had with the original goal. So that's it.
We will now enter a 5-minute Q&A period. Are there any questions? Representative Roberts. For 5 minutes.
Yes, I did.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the speaker will claim the remainder of the time. Are there any motions? Oh, Representative Boyaso. By what vote type?
Unanimous consent.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? So ordered. Any motions? Yeah.
Motion to accept the amendment by unanimous consent.
Any seconds?
Second.
Any objections? So ordered. So now we have adopted all 3 amendments or 4. Are there any other amendments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the actual bill now.
I have a motion. Representative Cannon UI to raise a point of order on further consideration of Assembly Resolution 4 on the ground that it violates Article 2, thanks for that. Chapter 1, Section 1.1 of the Code of Rules and Procedures, given that the speaker has no appointment power outside of the clerk, parliamentarian, and comms coordinator, and given that there is no codified deputy to the Assembly role.
Can you send that to me in writing?
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to enter about 5 minutes of recess while I consider the point of order. I just need-
Not everyone saying.
Representative Cannon, just let me know when you send it.
Not everyone saying. Huh? Not everyone saying my email.
I know.
Was there any met on there?
No,
You're
no.
good. You got some. I think mine is.
Representative Cannon, can you come to the front? I just haven't received it yet. Oh, just kidding. I received it. Sorry. I haven't received it yet. I will go over first and then I will ask any questions.
Okay. I mean, you're more than welcome to stay here. You are the speaker.
I'm gonna sit down. Sorry, I'm still looking for it. Do you remember what page it's
Of the code?
Yeah.
No, I would usually just.
Straight to this one.
Yes, so these are all of his job descriptions. Technically, the comms coordinator one is a bill pass, and the one for return for which should be reflected in that section of the
Representative Cannon, could you come to the front? Yeah. Just curious, what section are you specifically referring to?
The job description and roles of the Speaker of the
Right.
Assembly.
Is there any?
It doesn't grant him appointment power other than the clerk of the parliamentarian, just the clerk and the comms coordinator technically. But
It's just, I don't see where it says that explicitly.
it's towards the bottom. It says. What, do you see it?
Let me just
No, there's so many versions. Let me pull up my computer. I have it right.
I just can't find the specific thing you're referring to. This point of order is right in the screen.
Well, I'll say that like there is congressional precedent and that when roles are appointed, like this is how we go. And if we are to appoint a scholarship fund, like if we wanted to award someone, there's no precedent underlining that. So I think his argument's moot.
Oh, yo, I think
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Wait, what page is it on again? I just lost it. What number is that?
36, or it's 37 of the doc.
That makes a lot more sense. I was like, what are you talking about?
This is why we should have a non-editable.
No, I agree. So, what, 37.
I was copy and pasting it.
Right.
Right.
Wait, what number was it again? Hold on.
It's
I see number 12.
What did you say?
And you're referring to this one, right?
Yeah. I mean, and really,
Here's what I'll do. Just for fairness, like you both want to speak on it, like why you think
Well,
we shouldn't consider it.
I mean, that's your call to make. If you,
No, I just
mean,
feel
as,
like,
as speaker, if you don't want to rule on it, you can refer back to the assembly to make the ultimate decision.
no, it's just, you have any further comments to make, or if you have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say like to that section, I mean, there's no rule that prescribes that I don't have the ability to do that. And like, you look at congressional and Texas like precedent that like, if there was a scholarship or anything like that, or even like for our purposes, if there was a scholarship or an award that we wanted to give someone, if there's no award clearly laid out under the code of rules, by that logic, then we would have to nullify all sort of awards. And as it relates to congressional precedent, this is generally how appointments are given in Congress. They write a resolution outlining what the role does and who will fill it. So this is perfectly fine. It doesn't say that you can't appoint something through resolution, especially if it is a separate position. And Mr. Cannon was saying this to the Supreme Court.
well, I think it's a two-parter point of order. The second part also considers that the speaker is appointing someone to a position that doesn't yet exist. It hasn't been codified. So there's really no outlining way in the code for this person to assume their roles. If the speaker would like to prescribe someone to that role, then it should be outlined in the code and constitution. We can't just arbitrarily make up positions on the fly.
So this is not making an arbitrary position. It's in here. I consulted the Dean of Students office and they do not object to it. So I don't agree with that. I think it is. So
I am going to just review this one last time and then I'll draft something up. Okay, give me a few minutes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm good. I just gotta look for something.
Wait, not open. What do you mean? No. Helen.
Wait, Rep Pina Yosa posted us. So cute.
Helen. The rep. Who's the rep?
All right, can I have order, please? So I have considered the point of order from Representative Cannon. Thank you. I have considered the point of order from Representative Cannon. He raised the point of order for further consideration on AR4, given his interpretation that it violates Article 2, Chapter 1, Section 1.1 which states essentially that the speaker will appoint a clerk and parliamentarian by the end of the spring semester. However, it is my interpretation that this point of order is not moot, just given the fact that it doesn't say the speaker does not have that explicit right to do so. So if you disagree with my interpretation, you are more than willing to appeal my ruling or take it to the Supreme Court. With any motions, yes. Representative Tristan.
Representative Tristan U. White, a motion to move to previous question by a hand vote.
All right, raise your hand if, or any seconds. Yeah, any hand, or raise your hand if you agree or support the motion. So your motion, okay, so you're raising your hand to move the previous question, so then we can take a vote afterwards. So raise your hand if you want to move the previous question and move to a vote. Okay, so just to add some clarification right now, I've overruled the point of order, which means we're now considering the bill. However, before we can vote on the bill, we have to move the previous question, which Chair Tristan just did. So yes.
This bypasses the debate, right? Because once we move to the previous question, the strength voted.
Right. So again, so if you'd like to move the previous question, Chair Tristan has made a motion via hand vote. So raise your hands. And are there any on Zoom?
I don't see none.
Okay, now lower your hands. If you oppose the motion, please raise your hand. Okay. And any abstentions? Motion passes. Are there any other motions for the bill?
Point of information.
Mhm.
Are you subjecting the resolution to the 2/3 total favorability as per the code?
Yeah, it's only 2/3 favorable on voting for the fast track. So we passed that via unanimous
No,
consent.
for the passage of the resolution, total favorability.
I believe it's just a majority.
It's section 1.2. It says nominations or appointments made by the body president, speaker, or chief justice must be confirmed by a total favorable.
I'm not considering that. It's a resolution, so it's not an appointment. So given that, are there any motions on the bill?
President Creek, is it correct that a resolution can be passed by a simple majority, especially if that this is a temporary position not clearly outlined in the code of rules?
Yes, we're operating under a simple majority. So any motions? Chair Tristan.
Representative Tristan U. White, I move to approve AR4 by a hand vote.
Any seconds?
Objection.
Okay, your motion.
Representative Cannon UI, I move to approve the resolution by roll call vote.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Do you help?
Go ahead.
Okay.
See, I was prepared for this. Okay, so now we're voting on the bill itself. So I'll begin the roll call. Representative Adams. Yeah. Can they hear me?
Can y'all hear us on Zoom?
Okay, we'll come back.
Wait, Representative Adams? Walker Adams?
We'll come back. Representative Bailey.
Yes.
Representative Balakrishnan.
Yes.
Representative Banjara. Representative Cannon.
No.
Representative Cindric.
Yes.
Representative Klassen. Representative Collazo.
Yes.
Representative Kudamanos. And just so you know, I received a comment from Representative Adams and he voted yes. Representative Feinstein. Representative Fernandez.
Yes.
Representative Bierman. Representative Getachew.
Yes.
Representative Gonzalez. Representative Greenwald.
Yes.
Representative Holomek.
Yes.
Representative Hayes.
Yes.
Representative Hoshin. I'm not voting. Representative Giadel. Oh, he sent a proxy vote and this was no. Representative Sahil.
It's his first name and he says yes.
Oh. I haven't meant his last name here, but I'll correct that. Representative McGill. Oh, McGill, you're on Zoom. Okay. Representative Moore.
Yes.
Representative Mosley.
No.
Representative Pena.
No.
Representative Roberts.
Abstain?
Representative Ryan. Representative Sanchez.
No.
Representative Sinatambi.
No.
Representative Tristan.
Yes.
Representative Turgeman.
Yes.
Representative Villanueva. Representative Weiss. Representative Whittington.
Yes.
Okay, and I got a message from Representative Claston and he's voting no. So let me write that real quick.
Did it count? Did you count?
Yeah, it should be on here. I'll come back in a second. Representative Daxuk, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. Representative Hernandez.
Yes.
And Representative Daniel.
Yes.
I'm just gonna call back the names who didn't answer earlier. So Representative Banjara. Anything? Representative Kudamanos. Representative, I'm not voting. Representative McGill. And then Representative Villanueva. By a vote of 19 to 12 to 1, the resolution passes.
I'm so sorry. 1 second. I'll get.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Okay, moving forward. Okay, next up is AR5 in support of congratulating the Texas Beach team on their national championship. There has been a fast track requested. I will allow the author 1 minute to explain the fast track. 1 minute.
I don't want to take up too much time to fast track. I'm a member of the Texas Speech team. We competed in the American Friends Association competition this last weekend where we took home the national team championship. Nice, Cornell, they were all there. We beat them, y'all. So-
Yeah.
A bunch of new records. Anyway, so sorry, I'm not talking about it. Anyway, we're going to another national tournament next week. That's not for the team, it's for individual events, just more about the person, not really about the team. So I want to fast track it this week because they might get confused if we have 2 different national tournaments that the student government is congratulating for. And secondly, I just think it's best that this happened last week, that SG responds promptly and on the social media as quickly as possible so they can get the recognition.
All right, are there any questions for Representative Kenneth? Seeing none, the speaker will claim the remainder of the time. The speaker will entertain any motions. Representative Falaga. Is there a second?
It's moved.
Oh, sorry. Representative Holman.
Rep. Holman, UI, I motion to abridge the legislative process by unanimous consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any objection? You said by unanimous consent? Is there any objection? All right, move forward. You have 3 minutes to explain.
Okay, yeah, I'll just quickly what happened. We are allowed to bring 66 events. There's 11 different categories. I competed in like 2 or 3 of them, but like so multiple spring, multiple events. We're only allowed to bring 66. We advanced 54 from the preliminary rounds to the quarterfinals out of the 66, which is a national all-time record. And then we also advanced 23 entries to the national final round, which is also an all-time record. And we were the only team at the competition to have a UT student in every single one of the events. So we really came out there and we whooped some ass. Pardon my French. I've included a picture of the seniors on the resolution. So that's all the seniors on the team going to accept their national championship. We have a lot of members on the team are really passionate about their advocacy work, and they do a lot of work outside of speech. So I think this is just a great opportunity for us to congratulate them. It also, the Be Resolved process calls for us to post about them on our social media, as well as supporting the student government supports lighting the tower for the Texas Speech team. In the past, every time the Texas Speech team has won, they light up the tower for us. However, the dean of students decided to take that away and consolidate it to all of the academic teams at once, and instead just highlight the sports teams. So this resolution also calls for the support of like highlighting academic accomplishments as well.
All right, speaker will claim remainder of time. Are there any questions? Representative Holman.
Rep. Holman, UI. Did you know we're all very proud of you and
Yeah.
the debate team?
I'm very proud of everyone, and they're also going to kill it this next weekend at the next national tournament. I'm not going, I don't want to miss that much school, but they're missing like 10, 12 days of school just for the national tournament.
Well, that's dedication.
They're dedicated.
Yep.
All right, any other
Wait,
questions?
I'm pulling up the picture so we can all look at it. That'd be cute.
Are there any other questions?
There's not a question, just saying.
All right, seeing none, speaker will claim the remainder of the Q&A period, and we'll just look at the photo.
What's my computer stops? So slow. But yeah, beautiful picture.
Because there's so many tabs. open.
I know.
Sorry. Maybe we'll get it eventually.
That's a lot. Not the citrus too.
Yeah,
what?
Not the citrus.
It's still.
Wait, you saw citrus?
I tried
Oh,
to.
sorry, I'm sorry.
It's
Oh,
still
not
on my
mine.
computer.
Well, while we wait, let's give a round of applause to the debate team. All right. The speaker will entertain any motion. Representative Sinetambi.
Representative Sinetambi, College of Natural Sciences, I move the previous question by unanimous consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? So ordered. Representative Cannon.
Representative Cannon, UI, I move to approve AR5 by unanimous consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objection? So ordered. All right, we'll move forward with. What? Oh. All right, we'll move forward with ex officio reports. If there's anyone from Senate, GSA that wants to speak, I don't see anyone.
Not much happened. So.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. My computer-
Madam Vice President? Oh, yeah, the screen's frozen. Oh,
Sorry, my computer is.
oh, okay, well,
There you go.
oh, okay.
Hey everyone, just some updates. We're doing the final stretch of the VEC board applications and we'll be opening ADC director, executive staff, and policy director applications tomorrow. Again, if you think there's anyone that would be good for these positions outside of SG, please refer them to the application. And so far this week, we met with faculty council, student services budget committee, and also met with GSA president and vice president. And we're just really looking to have more collaboration across LSOs, and something that they have brought up to us is doing scholarships for student parents. So if anyone that is interested in this, please reach out to me on Slack. Again, join the social channel. Yeah, that's it.
All right, Mr. President.
Yeah, mine's pretty fast. Just another reminder about exec board apps closing this Friday. We now officially have the SG account, so we'll get work on the debate team highlight. And honestly, also if y'all have any initiatives y'all want highlighted, I know I helped Rep. Inbar with putting out her form on there, and we can definitely like highlight any of those initiatives and get y'all more promotion. So just like send us a DM or text. Also, our budget community working group, the interest form is still open. We're still trying to get more people so we can start that off summer strong. So if you're interested or know anyone, fill it out, especially like your other organizations, because you know, appropriations does benefit orgs a lot. We really want to hear those stakeholders. Another update about the Austin Starbucks Union Tour. So we have sent out a when to meet to everyone. I sent that out a couple days ago that has like a couple time frames. So if you're planning on attending that or just interested in it, try and fill that out just because it's going to narrow down when the best time would be to have that. So please fill that out. And then some other weekly recap updates, signed AR01 and AR02 from last assembly. Had another meeting with Zoe, who's running for city council, mostly about the Starbucks Union Tour. And he's going to help us, you know, get that more like advertised out more, including a lot of like Austin labor leaders and, you know, just bringing a lot more people, as well as Representative Hinojosa, who's also here tonight. She's also planning on supporting that initiative, and we're meeting with her soon. And then, yeah, also met with just reps about the union tour. And then our first PSAT meeting is this Friday, but I think it's just more of a celebratory not celebratory, but like sort of like a transition. Like I'm pretty sure Dean Lillies and our past president are going to be there and kind of have their final words, and then it'll be passed over to all the new LSO leadership. So that's all on my radar.
All right. Assembly Board reports. Rule and regulations.
All right, hello, everyone. First, I'd like to give Vice President a bossy credit because I stole from the president with some announcements. So one, first, congratulations to Representative Daniel. She's on Zoom and she's in our committee. So please fill out that with me. Ideally, I would have liked to meet during the weekend, but unfortunately, not everyone filled that out. So if you can, please fill it out. So some updates. So we have closed our campus safety survey. This has been an initiative I've been working on for a while. Put a few hundred responses. So now I'm going to collaborate with some people from Senate to create a report which will outline our findings. Secondly, we're introducing SG reform legislation next week. So if you like long meetings, make sure you attend. And another update. So yeah, so the Texas Civic Impact Council, and they're looking for fellows for Project Connect. I kind of mentioned this last week, but they emailed me and pretty much like setting them up so they can come speak to us next week as our special guest. So if you're interested in being a part of the Project Connect conversation as it relates to UT Austin, let me know and I'll make sure to put the word in for you. But yeah, those are my updates.
All right, next up is ethics and oversight.
Hi, everyone, real quick, please table, please sign up for tabling, I'll love you forever. EOC members, make sure you're part of the code of conduct, and it's Friday at 11 a.m. Thanks.
Okay. Next up, academic affairs.
Yeah, just everyone that's in academic affairs, remember that we're meeting today after assembly, and no one indicated that they're not going to go, so I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. And then planning a big initiative on academic reform. So if you have any initiatives that you would like to include with that, please reach out to me.
All right, financial affairs.
We do not have a meeting this week, just want to clarify. Also, congrats to Reese Klassen for being elected our vice chair. Also, big congratulations to Representative Diego Hernandez for wanting to be on the committee. Thanks. And then education working group, do it, please. It's cool. Leland is great. Also, if you guys want a community engagement opportunity thing, this weekend, my org, the Texas American Marketing Association, we're having a conference. You do not have to attend both days. You don't. Just go like on the 15th. There's some cool stuff. Register with that QR code up there. But yeah, it's just a good way to get that point out of the way. There's gonna be like a case competition. And then if you do want to come on Saturday, you can watch me present about what I've been doing for a local small business on their marketing team.
Ooh. Yeah. Amazing. All right, governmental affairs.
Hello, everyone. So governmental affairs. We had our vice chair elections last week. Anyone that was there knows that we had a three-way tie. So we are going to figure that out. We will figure that out eventually. So continuing our voting efforts. I also did have a really good, I didn't get to do it in time because I just came back from an Austin Youth Democrats meeting. I had another great conversation with city council candidate. So incredible guy, and we were talking a lot about union stuff and voting stuff. So please, if you have anything related to governmental affairs, especially voting legislation, please reach out to governmental affairs, any one of us, and let's talk about it. Thank you.
Next up. Student affairs.
Hey guys, our official day and time for recurring committee meetings is Fridays at 4:30 p.m. I plan on having a meeting this Friday actually. Our committee has recently, I already mentioned this in our last assembly meeting, but we've shown interest in improving CMHC and providing vegetable products as our committee initiative. And I'll be detailing our game plan and details in our next committee meeting. And if you don't know already, Representative Listan, I, and Representative Sindrick have created the DI caucus. So if you're interested, feel free to scan the QR code to join.
All right. First, I'm gonna deviate. I'll just say this. Two things. One, with the situation of government, governmental affairs, we have new representatives coming. We'll be swearing someone in tomorrow, next week. We're going to try to get someone in governmental affairs. That is my priority, so that they can fill their vice chair vacancy because they need to get going. As far as the AR4, I thank y'all. We will, he's not here, but Alex is going to be a great help to you all. will be a help to me to help get the legislation that we're about to pass and introduce next week ready. So I encourage you all to speak with them and consult with them in anything that you all need. And I'll get him the Slack info soon. I need everyone to scan this QR code, please, and take the survey. This is about the some legislation or some stuff that's going to be in the legislation. How do you feel about proxy voting? How do you feel about graduate students? Just a survey so that when rules and regulations takes up everything and votes on it, they have the best possible information to kind of know where reps stand. This is anonymous, so you're not putting yourself in any jeopardy. So I just encourage everyone so we can kind of see where everyone stands on certain things. On the Eyes of Texas referendum, that's going to be moved to the fall after consultations with the BPLC, the Black Presidents Leadership Council. They have decided to do it in the fall, so that is what we will do. September 30th is the date that the Dean of Students has been made aware of. So we will look forward to that and in consultation with the Senate to conduct that. Transform SG initiative. So yes, the Budget Reform Committee has completed all of their tasks and have sent it to me. I thank them for their hard work on that. We'll just be making small changes, getting rid of like grammatical changes, make sure that its intent is correct. But otherwise, it has done a great job, and I'm looking forward to Rules and Reg picking it up and seeing what they got. Other committees are making very good progress. We are hoping to, like I said, have this introduced next week for first reading. I assume that the Rules and Regulations Committee will be done on time, and the Ethics and Oversight Committee will also be done on time to have it all introduced. We're still waiting a little bit from the Reform Committee, but they're moving in pretty good order. So we'll hopefully be able to have it all ready for second reading. Vacancies. Yes, we still have a number of vacancies. For the engineering, I already have 2 people that have the engineering council has reached out to me and told me that they have interest in the position. So next week, I expect I will be swearing in 2 new engineering representatives. So engineering will have all their seats taken. So now anyone in actual sciences, 3 people, we need 3 people. So if you know anyone, please. So yeah, social media, please follow us on UTSG Assembly and Twitter. A lot of y'all have followed us on Instagram, which we follow you back. We follow you back.
So does the others, both do.
Yes, we follow you back on both. So follow us on Twitter too. If you have Twitter, please follow us. And we'll follow you back. And we're going to try to get posts on there. I hope that in the Transform SG bill, there are some parts that deal with communications to kind of outline the communications role so that we can get that started and so we can really, get our follower count up so the student body know that we exist. Last thing is we have a meeting with Dean Leland, Isabel and I on the 18th, which is just going to be kind of like an introductory meeting where we go over stuff, whatever Dean Lilly wants to talk to us about. So I will advise you on that soon. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, so this is a representative shout out. Please fill this out if you have a representative that you want to shout out for the week. Just because I just now put this in and I haven't had a chance to get an input for anyone. Well, any of y'all, I'm going to shout out Representative Weiss for taking photos for us. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to shout someone out, please fill this out. Next slide. These are just some mental health resources if you need them. So please take a photo if you need that. And any announcements? Representative Whittington.
Right. Hello, once again, remember how, I begged all of you to come, I think last week, I didn't see any faces, but I'm over it. But LSC also has prison abolition panel tomorrow, if you're interested. It'll be inside the Dice Center, inside of ROB, which is the building next door. And then off topic, in regards to like the rules reform committee, for those of you on it, just letting y'all know, I did do a quick draft of some of the things that we'd already agreed on, like very basic, not from a slip or anything, but if any of you would like to take a look at it, it's on the same agenda as of our meeting last week, and we would like to look, let me know, because we gotta work a lot faster than I thought, but it's fine, it's fine, okay.
Anyone else? Any other announcements? Representative Turgeon.
Hi guys. So like Dylan said, my survey for the grocery store initiative is still on the way. Responses. I got it on the SG Instagram, my personal account, and schools. Send it to your friends, like I don't know, post it on your own social media. Just make sure we get the responses. It makes it so much easier with administration stuff that we need, like lift credits or shuttle to get groceries and anything to, fill with it. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, let's go. Move forward. Second roll call, if anyone can fill out second roll call.
Tomorrow's National Scrabble Day.
Yeah, I guess Adrian, tomorrow is National Scrabble Day.
Oh, Adrian.
Huh?
Who died?
Oh, Thomas Jefferson, oh, wait, no, his birthday's tomorrow, but no, he didn't.
Wait, who died?
No, like in history.
I know, who?
No, some president, I forgot which one.
We're looking up.
That's right.
So true.
Oh, it was FDR. Oh, FDR.
So,
Wow.
okay. Are there any objections to me closing the attendance form here? All right, next slide. Next slide. The chair recommends a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Is there any objection? All right, seeing none, we're adjourned. See y'all next week.
Yes.
No, but.
Ryan.